Paris, a hotel suite, October 1929. A man in a dinner jacket sits at a writing desk, finalizing a loan to the German government, $125 million. Through the window, the newspaper sellers are shouting. Across the Atlantic, the stock market is dying. He does not look up. He keeps signing. The most famous businessman on earth is lending a national government more money than it has ever borrowed from a private hand. And the money he is lending does not exist. His name was Ivar Kreuger. The world called him the Match King. By the end of 1930, he controlled 90% of the matches made on this planet. He had loaned $387 million to 15 governments: Poland, France, Germany, Greece, Ecuador, Latvia, and a dozen more. He advised President Hoover. He advised the King of Sweden. And for 15 years, he ran the largest fraud the world had ever seen, while the world called him a genius. This is the story of how he did it, and how 20 words ended it.
This story turns on something stranger than fraud. The men who eventually destroyed Kreuger were not regulators or police. The state trusted him completely. What protected him was reputation. He had become too respected to question. When a Swiss banker warned a room full of German officials that Kreuger faced bankruptcy, every single person in that room ignored him. The numbers did not reassure them. They simply assumed the man could not be wrong. That is the mechanism worth watching. The trust that made the forgery unnecessary for so long.
He was born in Kalmar, Sweden, in March 1880, the eldest of 6. His father owned a match factory. Ivar wanted nothing to do with it. At 19, he sailed for America and became a construction engineer. He worked on the Flatiron Building, on Macy's, on the Plaza Hotel, on a stadium at Syracuse University. Then he came home to Stockholm, 27 years old, carrying one specific idea: a faster way to pour reinforced concrete. In 1908, with a partner named Paul Toll and 10,000 kronor, he founded a construction firm. The name on the door, Kreuger and Toll. The construction work funded what he actually wanted: the matches. In 1913, he engineered a merger and built United Swedish Match Factories. In 1917, he split everything in 2. The construction arm went to Paul Toll. Ivar kept the holding company and founded Swedish Match, capitalized at $10 million. He owned roughly half of it. He held every senior position that mattered. Then, in 1923, in New York, alongside the bank Lee Higginson and Company, he created International Match Corporation. Its shares promised investors a 20% dividend every year. The model was elegant. A government needed cash. Kreuger had cash. He would lend a nation millions, and in return, that nation handed him the exclusive right to sell every match within its borders. Poland came first. Then France took 75 million. Then Germany, 125. Greece, Yugoslavia, Hungary, Latvia, Romania, Lithuania, Bolivia, Estonia, Guatemala, Turkey. He even engineered the loans to protect against currency swings. Borrowers could repay in Dutch guilders or US dollars, an early form of financial option few bankers of the age understood. By 1928, Kreuger and Toll controlled more than half the matches on Earth, and Swedish Match shares were the most widely traded securities in the world. But the model had a flaw buried at its center. The loans did not pay for themselves. Building and defending a monopoly cost as much as the monopoly was worth. The matches alone could never fund a 20% dividend. By 1924, the dividends paid to international match investors were no longer coming from profit. They came from the capital of new investors. The match business could honestly support a dividend of 1.5%. He was paying 20. The gap, that 18.5-point gap, was filled by selling more shares to more people, to pay the people who came before.
Strip away the matches and the kings and the maps, and what is left is the oldest structure in finance. New money pays the old promises. That is the entire machine. What made Kreuger different was the disguise. A street-level swindler runs out of victims in months. Kreuger built a worldwide industrial empire as the costume over the scheme. Real factories, real matches, real monopolies wrapped around a hollow center. The fraud itself was crude. The genius lay in the architecture that hid it. 400 companies in 43 countries, each one a wall in the maze. And a maze that large only stays standing while fresh money keeps flowing in.
For a while, the money never stopped flowing. By the end of 1930, Kreuger controlled 90% of global match production across 24 national monopolies. His empire spanned between 250 and 400 subsidiaries in 43 countries. And in Sweden, the dependence had become total. 64% of all trading on the Stockholm Stock Exchange was in Kreuger companies. He invented a new financial instrument to do it, the B share. A second class of stock that took the public's money but kept the public's vote at zero. He sold ownership and never surrendered control. Then came the weekend in October 1929. While Kreuger sat in that hotel room finalizing the German loan, Wall Street collapsed, and Wall Street was where he raised his money. The well he drank from froze over. The biographer Frank Partnoy notes something haunting about that moment. Had Kreuger simply walked away from the German deal that weekend, his actual match business might genuinely have turned a profit. He did not walk away. He signed. And now the new money he depended on to pay the old promises stopped arriving.
This is the moment the whole thing was always going to break. And notice how quiet it is. There was no regulator at the door, no detective. The trigger was a market 2,000 miles away doing what markets do. A Ponzi structure has no reverse gear. It can only grow or die. The instant the new money slows, the arithmetic that was always there becomes visible. Kreuger spent the next 2 years not running a business, running ahead of his own subtraction. Every rescue he attempted from here is the same act repeated. Find new money, cover the old hole, buy a month. The empire was already dead in October 1929. It just had not been told yet.
To buy that month, again and again, he began stripping his own companies for parts. In the autumn of 1930, he quietly installed his own loyalists as chairman and president of LM Ericsson, Sweden's flagship telephone company. Then he moved Ericsson's cash, covertly, into Kreuger and Toll. And in June 1931, he went further. He sold Ericsson itself. He sold control of Sweden's national telephone champion to its American rival, ITT, for $11 million in cash. The money was spent within days, on dividends. He hid the sale from his own lenders, he hid it from Sweden, and he hid it from the president of Ericsson himself. By late 1931, lenders wanted collateral, real assets, documents, so Kreuger made some. He forged Italian treasury bills, government bonds supposedly issued by Italy, with a nominal value of £21 million. He entered them on the books of Kreuger and Toll as genuine assets. He added a forged Spanish loan contract for 180 million pesetas. On the forged Italian documents, he misspelled the names of the Italian officials. The most respected businessman in the world, forging bonds like a clumsy amateur. The Price Waterhouse auditors would later describe his bookkeeping as so childish that anyone with rudimentary knowledge could see the books were falsified. He was not entirely without warning. In March 1931, a meeting convened at the German Ministry of Finance in Berlin. A Swiss banker rose to speak, Felix Sommery, a man so accurate in his predictions, he was called the Raven of Zurich. According to his own memoir, The Raven of Zurich, Sommery told the room plainly that Kreuger and Toll faced imminent bankruptcy. The officials listened. Then they ignored him. 1 year later, almost to the month, the Raven would be proved right. By February 1932, the buying-a-month strategy had run out of months. Kreuger came to Sweden's central bank, the Riksbank, asking for emergency loans for the second time. And consider the scale of what he had already borrowed. From Swedish commercial banks alone, he owed 800 million krona. 800 million krona, equal to 10% of the entire Swedish economy. One man. The governor of the Riksbank, Ivar Kreuger, looked at the request and refused. It should have ended there. The central bank had done its job. The caution was correct. But then the Prime Minister of Sweden, Carl Gustaf Ekman, intervened personally. He pressed the bank to reconsider, to keep Kreuger afloat. Because by now, Kreuger had become the Swedish economy itself. To let him fall was to let the nation fall with him. And at almost the same moment, on the other side of the Atlantic, the trap was closing from a direction Kreuger couldn't stop. ITT's own auditors had begun reading Ericsson's year-end accounts. They found the numbers had been deliberately inflated. The Ericsson sold to them the previous summer was not the Ericsson that existed. ITT demanded the deal be cancelled, and the $11 million returned. Kreuger did not have $11 million. He no longer had anything at all. He had left Sweden for the last time in November 1931. On the 11th of March 1932, he returned to Paris aboard the Ile-de-France. He met his vice president, Christa Littorin, and his banker, Oscar Rydbeck, to prepare documents. There was a meeting scheduled for the 13th, in Berlin, with the Riksbank chairman. He had to produce collateral he did not possess. The next morning, he went out and bought a pistol. Then he returned to his apartment on the Avenue Victor Emmanuel III. On the 12th of March, 1932, Ivar Kreuger was found dead in his Paris apartment. A 9mm pistol lay beside him. The French police and physician concluded he had taken his own life, sometime between 11:15 and 10 past noon. He left a note. It was 20 words. I have made such a mess of things that I believe this to be the best solution for everybody concerned. He was 52 years old. 2 days later, he had been due in Berlin. The meeting would never happen. For a month, Sweden mourned a fallen hero. His funeral was held in Stockholm on the 22nd of March. Then, on the 15th of April, the auditors spoke. The public was told the truth, that Kreuger had been insolvent, and that he was, in the words of the announcement, a very clumsy forger of bad bonds. The reaction was instant. The wealthiest families in Sweden were ruined. The Wallenberg banking dynasty had to step in to hold the financial system together. Municipal tax collections fell by 10%. Even the king's own brother, Prince Carl, was forced to give up his residence for humbler quarters. And the company debt at collapse, $1.2 billion. The largest corporate bankruptcy the world had ever seen.
The cost fell on others, never on Kreuger himself. He left nothing for his own family, but the deeper losses landed on people who had never met him. Pension money, family savings, small fortunes built over a lifetime and handed to a name everyone trusted. And then the political ground moved. The prime minister who had pressed the central bank to save Kreuger was finished. That September, his party was routed. The Social Democrats took power and held it continuously for 44 years, until 1976. A single man's accounts had reordered the politics of a country for 2 generations. That is what total trust costs when it turns out to be misplaced.
The reckoning was slow and meticulous. Oscar Rydbeck, the banker and mentor, was sentenced to 10 months for failing his duties as a director. Ivar's brother, Torsten, was arrested that October, sentenced to 3 years, reduced to 1 on appeal. The auditors at Price Waterhouse worked for 9 years, 30 men, a dozen calculating machines, hundreds of ledgers, 57 separate reports. What they finally established was the size of the lie. Kreuger had reported over $300 million in profit. The real figure was about 40 million, and even that included items they called of doubtful genuineness. And he had personally withdrawn from the companies he ran around $115 million. But the largest consequence was written into law. In the United States, public revulsion at the Kreuger fraud overwhelmed the opposition to financial reform. The Securities Act of 1933, the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. For the first time, companies selling shares to the public would have to disclose and to be independently audited. Legal historians have put it bluntly, without Ivar Kreuger, modern securities regulation and litigation would not exist. And there is one stranger inheritance. The B share, the dual-class stock he invented to take the public's money while keeping the public's vote at zero, is still in use today by Alphabet, by Meta, by Berkshire Hathaway. There is one thing the auditors never settled. The body was reportedly cremated quickly, despite instructions to the contrary. 33 years later, his brother Torsten came forward, joined by a former mistress and others, claiming Ivar had not killed himself at all. They alleged he had been murdered. Torsten spent the rest of his life, until 1973, fighting for a retrial, fighting to prove his brother was a victim rather than a fraud. He never proved it. The French police ruling has never been overturned. The forgeries, though, those were never in doubt.
The economist John Kenneth Galbraith called Kreuger the Leonardo of larcenists, granting him genius and crime in the same breath. The Standard account files him under fraud, a clever criminal who fooled the gullible. But the record points somewhere less comfortable. He did not break into the system. The system handed him the keys. No mandatory audits, no disclosure. A market that mistook reputation for evidence and treated questions as an insult. The forgeries were so crude a child could have caught them. What kept them safe was everyone's certainty that a man so admired could not possibly need to forge. So here is the question to sit with. The laws he triggered were built to stop the next Kreuger. The B share he invented to escape accountability is used by the largest companies alive today. Which half of him did we actually inherit?
The next collapse is one click away. Subscribe.